Making that stuff till you hearing that sound.
Welcome to The Approach, the podcast where we explore the worlds of canyoneering and climbing while diving into the profound connection between these outdoor pursuits and the Christian faith. I'm Creed Ferguson, and today I'm joined by Matt Hutchins. Matt, welcome on. If you want to talk about kind of just how you got introduced and into canyoneering and climbing and your history with them, as well as what you're doing now, you're also more than welcome to share your testimony and kind of how that is involved.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Creed.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. I've been in the outdoor industry, participating in canyoneering and climbing for about the past 10 years, I believe, if I'm doing my math correct.
Yeah.
I got into it through the university school, actually. I went there, graduated from high school there. They have an awesome adventure program, at least when I went there. And that's how I got into all this. Through that school, it's also how through the influence of some of the leadership there, is how it came about, my faith. I did grow up in a Christian family, but that had no influence on my life necessarily. This is my own thing. It's more of, okay, my parents are Christian, I'm going to follow suit to an extent just to make my life easier with them while I'm under their roof. And I really loved the idea of canyoneering and climbing. And so when I found out about the school, I begged my parents to go there, and they sent me there. And the canyoneering and climbing getting into that was an amazing process, but more importantly, the leadership there, their influence on my life really impacted my faith. And through that, I came to Christ. And that's like the process of through the school of how I came to Christ. Eventually, I got to where I was working for Jeff Cooper, the CEO and founder of Venture Off. He, at the time, was working at the school. And so he hired me on at first as just a intern for like a year, and worked off and on there for around 2 years about. Yeah. It's kind of, since it's off and on, it's hard to keep track of. But yeah, after I graduated from there, he started Venture Off and hired me on at Venture Off as the senior instructor. And that's been an awesome opportunity. Been learning a lot about just growing in my guiding experience for people, and it's been awesome getting to influence students in the same way that I was influenced by an adventure program, by canyoneering, by climbing.
Yeah.
Since then, I've also worked in a climbing gym as a route setter, so I've had grown in my climbing through that, and as well as just doing a lot of canyoneering and climbing on my own.
Definitely.
Has definitely been a lot of growing opportunities and learning opportunities through that.
Nice. How long have you been senior instructor at Venture Off?
So Venture Off kicked off as its own thing back in 2019.
2021.
Well, I'm way off. Back in 2021. So right when it kicked off as its own program, because it used to be incorporated with the university school. When it kicked off as its own program, Jeff gave me a call and asked if I wanted the position. So since 2021.
Nice. Yeah, 2021 is when I went on my first trip, and that's when I was a student.
I remember. I don't think I was on your first trip, though.
You weren't. It was a bunch. It was Luke and Mateo and Kay and a bunch of other of those guys. But yeah, I didn't meet you until I think a few weeks after.
Okay.
Which is, I think we went and we had to plan, and me and Jeff had to plan a adventure race for Riff.
I remember that. Yeah.
I was like, here's this little tiny guy who can, and it looks like he can really climb.
Little tiny guy, come on, yeah, it's true.
But yeah, I guess we'll just get right into some of the other questions I have. How has, specifically, obviously, in ministry, our faith and our passion for canyoneering and climbing, they get to intersect a lot. But do you have any stories of how those have kind of overlapped in ways that you've been able to, not only for the kingdom of God, but also like teach people things about canyoneering and climbing?
Yeah. I think that the experiences that we have out in the wilderness as a group, a lot of times they draw us closer together and open up doors for the gospel to be shared.
Yeah.
I realize that's a very like broad answer to that question.
Oh, yeah.
But if I'm like trying to dive down more and think of just where that has actually come forth in a tangible way, I had a trip pretty recently where after the day of activities, we were out climbing. We were gathered around the campfire. One of the kids, as for his homework, but he had to ask everyone in the group. He asked us all, trying to remember the question exactly. So I'm probably paraphrasing here, but it's basically like, why do you believe what you believe?
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily like his schoolwork wasn't necessarily on the Christian aspect of things. It was more of a psychology class or something like that. Philosophy class, that's what it is. But that definitely opened up a lot of opportunities for just great discussion and great opportunities for us as leaders to like point the students to Christ. And,
Yeah.
but I've also had situations where it's like we're going through, everyone's exhausted from the canyon or something like that, and that just bonds us closer together and opens doors that normally wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And also helps the students put trust in us where we can be able to have that influence on them, the positive influence of Christ and the gospel.
Yeah. It's interesting, because people, once they go through something very difficult, especially with someone, they are a lot more willing to be vulnerable. And I think too, like that student, whoever it was, he did pose a very good question, like that a lot of Christians do have to face, usually at unfortunate timing. I think what you were sharing about your testimony is kind of how it was like becoming a Christian was more, or being a Christian was more of a cultural thing for you. It wasn't necessarily something that you believed in until certain points. And I think it's that especially for people who grow up in the church where they're introduced to the culture of Christianity and the I guess almost the religious aspect of it versus being introduced to the faith. Like we have to face that eventually.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah. So nice. I think even too about the wilderness, like Jesus went into the wilderness, right? Like he spent 40 days out there. And that's something that we like to say venture off. Like if Jesus went into the wilderness, how much more do we? Because I think that there is a lot of a lot that we can draw from those experiences, especially in the wilderness and in creation. And it's a lot more raw, and you have an experience with the Lord that is almost irrelevant to something that here in the city or in civilization. But yeah, that's good. Sweet. Kind of tying it in, nature often plays a significant role in both canyoneering and climbing. How is spending time in these awe-inspiring outdoor environments deepen your spiritual connection or understanding of God?
Yeah, I think that one, just being out and seeing the majesty of his creation, that's just God showing off to the extent and just showing a glimpse of like, this is how powerful I am. This is what I've done, what I've created with just a word. I think being able to canyoneer and climb, that puts you in situations where you're able to experience maybe different views that unless you have those skills, you'll never be able to experience except looking at someone else's picture. You'll only be able to experience that through someone else's eyes. And there's a vast difference between a picture taken and your own eyes.
Yeah.
The beauty is so much more magnificent. So I think that having the skills to see things that very few people get to see is just more ways that you can see God's beauty than most people. So being able to get out into a deep, dark canyon or on top of a tower somewhere with magnificent views all around you, that's very awesome way to experience God's creation. And by experiencing God's creation, we're experiencing Him. And the beauty that we experience should only have one effect on us, and that should be for us to praise God.
Yeah. What are ways that you've seen, like, venture off, I guess, like, bring glory to God? Like, when someone says, like, how come venture off just isn't a good time? How would you explain that to them?
And that's a
Yeah. Like, we have a lot of fun. We do a lot of cool things. But what's, like, for you and in your experience, what separates us from another guiding company?
I think it kind of, to an extent, depends on the person. A lot of people will only get out of venture off what they're wanting to get out of venture off. So if they're just wanting a fun time, they'll walk around with a fun time. If they're wanting to grow and seek God more, then we will be providing those opportunities to grow and seek God more and draw closer to Him. I think that is the general rule, but I believe that God has used venture off in the past, or experiences like venture off in the past, to draw people who were going just for a fun time. Myself as an example, when I first started going to the school, I wanted to go to that school because of the adventure program.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn how to do these things. That was my only, this is what I want. And I was kind of like, I don't care about Christ. I don't care about any of that other stuff. The attraction was the adventure.
Yeah.
And that attraction, God used that to open up the doors to Him in my life. So even if someone's just wanting a fun time for venture off, I still think that if God's in it, He can change their heart. And we do have on a lot of our trips, especially our summer trips, we'll have a lot of devotionals and even just time of worship. And the worship times out there are, in my opinion, some of the best times in worship that I've had have been out in the wilderness, out in the middle of nowhere with people that I just suffered through a canyon with or had this awesome adventure with. Then coming back to camp and sitting around a fire singing praises to God is a totally different experience and draws us closer. Yeah.
It is really interesting. I think venture off has a unique opportunity as a ministry. We are a lot different than a lot of other ministries, especially because of all the things that we do technically, whether that's climbing or canyoneering, and we have extended appeal. We have something that's different than just a normal church camp, and it adds a certain level of depth. But then we also we can attract two very different demographics very easily. We can attract the people that want to have a good time, but then we can also attract people that want to grow in their faith.
Yeah.
And when I think those two come together very nicely, which is always cool to see. And then what you're saying, the way that the community builds very quickly on trips is honestly phenomenal to watch. Especially on the 8-day long trips. Usually about halfway through the week, I think is when I notice it. And when people start to kind of let their guard down.
Oh, yeah.
And especially after going through a few canyons, we'll do Hope Water Day. People have a good time playing spike ball around camp and stuff. And,
It's all strangers sometimes, too. Yeah.
And most people, I think majority of the people that we take on trips are people that I've never met before, never even seen. And 4 nights later, I'll be having deep conversations with these people about their faith, about what they believe, about their philosophy, their worldview, and things that are ultimately life-changing. And I think that is evidence of how the Lord is using venture off, like you were saying. And I think that you were speaking your testimony. I think part of my testimony too is that that God has used venture off in my life, and that's been thanks to the obedience of people like Jeff Cooper, who at the time was leading at the school that he was leading the adventure program at the school that you wanted to go to because of the adventure program.
Yeah.
And then he's now leading the ministry that now I'm a part of. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I think that those outdoor experiences, I've had similar outdoor experiences since then with the people who are my mentors, Jeff being one of them and a couple other people. that I've gone out on these adventures with, and it really just opens up amazing opportunities for discipleship that they come naturally. It's not like I'm sitting down and having okay, we're going to meet for breakfast and this will be our discipleship time. It's a random opportunities that you would never see coming. Opportunities for prayer, and just I feel comfortable out there with them, and it opened up to them in ways that I wouldn't necessarily always open up to them.
Yeah.
So even for the students, being able to be vulnerable as someone, and yeah, God just uses that and opens up doors through that.
Yeah, it's a big step for a lot of people too. A lot of people, especially on like certain trips, there's a lot of people that don't have people in their life that they can talk to, and we're blessed with the opportunity to be that person for them. So, yeah, that's a great answer, great conversation. So, do you want to talk about the book?
The book.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's something that I've been working on with Venture Off. A good portion of last year is we teach a lot of classes to different students. And so I've been kind of working on creating a curriculum for those classes. And I had the first draft of a book that we will hand out to the students.
Nice.
So I designed this and wrote this, a little bit of help on the writing side. There's still a lot of issues with this prototype. If you notice, all the pages are like very rough cut right now. We're working on fixing that. I think there's like a blank page somewhere in here for some reason. But we designed that we'll be able to hand that out to the students that we teach, even for college classes or some of our junior high classes that we have. And it has just going through all the material that we teach. There's a couple things missing in it, and I'm still working on adding. But everything's illustrated out, and I've been working on you with some videos that will go along and complement this book. But it'll just be a tool that we can hand out to the students to help them learn the technical aspects of canyoneering. I don't know.
Take a look at it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I've only seen.
There's a lot of. It's a very rough draft. So, but you've only seen the PDF version,
Yeah,
right?
I always see random PDFs here and there.
Yeah, so that is our canyoneering one. I also have a much shorter one on first aid stuff, because we also provide a wilderness first aid class. And then I have another one that is on the climbing aspect. The climbing aspect one has a lot of overlap with canyoneering. A lot of the knots are the same, but it just offers a little bit more. Eventually, I want to get actual we print that here at Springs Church. So I want to get professionally printed eventually. And
Yeah.
we're just kind of testing out the size and font and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah, we took a lot of the pictures too.
that back picture actually that was me back when I first started canyoneering.
That's you.
Yeah, that's me. I was probably 14 years old there.
Jeez.
So
Little Matt.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is great, especially because something like this really doesn't exist in the canyoning community at all.
Yeah.
It's still a very small, very niche community, kind of like what you were saying earlier. And it's like, I think to be able to create something like this, I think the community can really benefit from. Yeah, it talks about knots and gear, canyon safety, canyon beta, anchors, canyon rescues.
Yeah. And I'm planning on adding more. This will kind of just be for first year students mostly. Once we get it up and rolling and get kind of a consistent curriculum for each class, this one's geared towards entry level.
Yeah.
So
Nice. Yeah, this looks great.
thank you.
That's cool.
It's a lot of work.
How'd you describe the whole process? Like, did it go smoothly? What were some of the challenges that you faced?
Biggest challenge I faced was just sticking with it and not getting distracted by other work things, or it's kind of just a stay motivated challenge. All the information that's in there is out there. Like, you can find all the information that's in that book if you search the right things online.
Sure.
But also searching the right things online is can be a very dangerous thing if you don't know what you're searching for.
That's true.
So I've tried to put ideas in there and concepts in there that are approved or have been tested, and it's like, yep, this knot will hold.
Yeah.
It'll hold more than you'll ever put on it in a canyon, and not just this should hold, this should be fine. But actually, I think this is an awesome tool because it's one place that you can go to and have all these different items that you can use towards canyoneering. And eventually, once we get the videos finished that we've been working on, I want to print QR codes inside the book, and you can just take your phone. If the images that I have in there don't explain how to tie the knot well enough, you can take your phone and scan it. It'll lead you to our YouTube page where we'll have actual demonstrations talking through how to tie the knots.
Yeah. And also, like, the videos will also add a whole lot to the canyoning community because we use a lot of different knots than climbers will typically use, and when people are looking for a knot that they could use in a certain situation, they don't know the name of the knot, they don't know that is a knot that you use in canyoneering. So yeah, sounds great. What was I gonna ask? I think rock on. But do you have it? I noticed like emergency situations was in there. Do you have any stories about rescues or emergencies?
On the most recent trip that I was on, we had someone get their hair stuck in their lay device. It's a 175-foot rappel, and they're about 20 feet off the ground, and in a tree though, so there's like branches all around them, and their hair got sucked into their blade device, and they're up there like, help, like freaked out a little bit. And so I was below them, and I had to send up and get their weight out off the friction device, and that allowed me to get the rope out, but the hair was so stuck in there, it was almost like braided to the rope. So I still ended up having to give the girl a little bit of a haircut 20 feet off the deck. But once you're down, I saved enough hair that you can't tell that she had a haircut. So, but I have given someone a haircut now.
Nice. On the rappel.
On rappel, yeah. 20 feet off the ground, dangling by a rope, the size of my finger, yeah. I've also had a couple situations where people have gotten stuck in a canyon. A lot of the emergencies that you come across to, if you know what to do, they're not super dangerous.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any serious injury in a canyon. I'm trained to have my wilderness first responder certification stuff. All the things I've seen in the canyon, for the most part, have been very minor. Yeah. The most common thing that I see is a sprained ankle. But with all the emergencies, for the most part, if you just stay calm and process through it, think through it, that's the hardest part of dealing with one of those rescue situations or emergencies, is just staying calm and using your brain. And I could have rescued her slightly faster if I thought through the process slightly more. So it was a learning experience for me too.
Sure.
But she stayed safe the whole time, got down safe, had a happy rest of the trip. Yeah. She even loved that canyon. We asked her at the end of the trip, like, what was your favorite canyon? She's like, that one.
What side was it?
It was Mindbender in Robber's Roost. So it's super pretty canyon. Last rappel is amazing. For some reason, it feels like way higher than it is. You're standing out there, and it's like, I think it's because of the trees below. You're looking down on all these trees, and it's just like
Can you see the ground, or do you see the tops of the trees?
You can see the ground. There's like a pool at the bottom, kind of, and it's mostly mud, just because of the time of year that we went through.
Yeah.
But you could see that it is a weird feeling on that rappel, just how, at least for me, it felt really big.
Yeah.
Even though, like, yeah, I've done bigger rappels than this. Sure. And I was like, oh, this is, I don't know if it's a perspective thing or...
Yeah. That's cool. What is... this came to mind for some reason, but, like, I know for me, when people get stuck, I'm trying to help them. The worst thing is when they smell bad. It's like, I know we're camping, and I know we're out here, but it's like sometimes deodorant goes a long way.
I have a really bad nose. for the most part, which is probably a blessing. I've seen people like, oh, they're panicking or something like that. They're dripping sweat. They're just like freaking out a little bit, and I've never smelt anything. So I've been lucky on that end.
Even especially as guides, like if somebody can't get through a canyon, it's our job to hand them, give them a hand, give them a foot. Sometimes they're literally using us as holds.
Yeah. They're stepping on us. We're getting walked all over.
And then you just get a whiff, and you're like, wow.
I did go to school with someone who it was like a known thing that we need to get this guy some deodorant. Like,
it's like, and I get it. Like, I probably sold that too. Like, we're camping, like nobody's showering, but it's like,
use deodorant.
If the wind blows and I can smell you, like even if I'm far away from you and just like the wind blows through the canyon.
Are you trying to give me a hint? Okay, just making sure.
I'm not. Sweet. What are other notable canyons that you would suggest to people who want to get into canyoneering, or maybe just cool canyons that you like or appreciate? Doesn't have to be in a specific area or a specific skill level, but whatever you're thinking.
Yeah, if you're wanting to get into canyoneering, it's definitely, I would highly recommend going with someone who has experience in canyoneering. A lot of the incidents that you hear either like online or something like that is because the people leading the group are not experienced enough. Whether that just be probably the most like common rescue situation in canyoneering is a navigation issue, and people either drop into the wrong canyon or just get lost out there. And there's been like quite a few rescues because of that. So make sure you go with someone who knows, preferably who has done the canyon before, and who knows what they're doing going through that canyon. But as far as recommendation goes, some of Venture Off's favorite canyons to guide, we do what's called the Blarney Loop. So it's going up one fork of Blarney, down the other, and then in that same area, so that's all it's in the North Wash. In that same area, there's Hogwarts. It's a super beautiful canyon, has an amazing, beautiful arch in the middle of it. And those are we like those canyons because they're easy for us to guide, and they're great for first-timers. It gives them a good mixture of experience through different canyons, different styles of canyoneering. Yeah. Some of my favorite, though, in Zion National Park, there's a canyon called Pine Creek that is super beautiful. Yeah. Have you done that one yet?
I have done Pine Creek.
Yeah.
I did Pine Creek in 2021 with you.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. I have a picture of that. So, like, who is this kid? That's, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful canyons I've been in. Yeah. And I think it is the second canyon that I've ever done. So it has like a special first day of canyoneering. We did that canyon. I was like, I love this. This is so awesome.
Yeah.
That's the canyon where I knew that I was going to be doing canyoneering for a while. And I was like, this is cool. Like, I want to get into this.
That's awesome.
So it has like a special place in my heart. And I think just my favorite canyon that I've done is Sandtrax.
Yeah.
In the North Wash. And probably the hardest canyon in the North Wash area. I think Utah definitely has some harder canyons. I love the challenge of it though, and I think I built up the challenge a little bit too much in my mind. So I'm excited to go out and try canyons that are even harder than that.
Yeah.
But it was just beautiful. We had a very small, awesome crew. That's a canyon that we don't guide.
Yeah.
It'd be a dangerous canyon to guide. So it's just me and a couple coworkers, and yeah, it was a amazing experience, and it's nice not having to worry about anyone's safety. It's kind of everyone is fully capable of keeping themselves safe, and so it's just we did at the end of the trip is like, yep, staff, go through this and like kind of relax, enjoy canyoneering. It's fun since we guide a lot of the same canyons over and over. It's fun to sometimes get to be out and realize why you fell in love with canyoneering by doing canyons that we don't do as much. Because a lot of times I feel like as guides, running the same canyons over and over again it starts to almost feel like a job, which right now my job doesn't feel like a job.
Yeah.
Guiding it's an amazing opportunity for me to show to others what has been shown to me, to pass on, like, hey, this has had this impact on my life. I hope this has the same impact on your life.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing opportunity to pass that down. But sometimes I think just the repetitive nature of doing the same canyons a lot, we start to almost get used to it. It's unfortunate that we almost get used to it. But every once in a while, getting out and just doing the canyons that we don't guide is very refreshing and almost brings back that, oh, this is amazing. This is so beautiful out here. This is awesome that God created this crack in the earth that we get to explore.
You just drop into.
Yeah. So and he did that just because he can.
Yeah.
To show off his power. Yeah.
It's crazy. Talk to me about the trifecta.
The trifecta. So that is a challenge that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. And no one, to my knowledge, has ever completed the challenge in under 24 hours.
Yeah.
The record, last I looked up, like the only record that I could find was a little bit over 25 hours. But the trifecta is in Zion National Park, and it's Zion's 3 biggest canyons. So they have Heaps, Imlay, and Kolob. It's trying to do all 3 of those canyons in under 24 hours. I haven't yet done any of those canyons. I'm really hoping to do them all individually later this year and just figure out like what the challenge entails. And then I want to give a run at them to complete them all in under 24 hours. It's my hopes and dreams.
And like, if you could, is it like 24 divided by 3? Like exactly like if each one is rated about 8 hours, or is one like crazy long, like, or another shorter? Like, how would you divvy up that time?
Yeah, so they're all a little bit different. Heaps is the biggest one, and if I remember correctly, it's a 12 to 14 hour day. Some people actually have spent 2 days in that canyon.
Yeah.
In just that one canyon. It has over 40 rappels, I believe. One of the rappels is a massive, I forget whether this is Heaps or Imlay, but one of the rappels is a massive 300-foot drop that's mostly free hanging.
Yeah.
And you drop right into the narrows of Zion. Well, I just forgot the name of the place. Are you looking up the beta?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it on Road Trip Ryan for
The trifecta?
no, not the trifecta, but
Heaps. Is it HEAPS?
HEAPS, yeah.
Heaps Canyon, Zion May Canyon. Heaps is a 4BR5. 4BRV, yeah. 14 plus hours, 2 days.
Yep, 14 plus.
That's standard tactical gear. 18 plus 296 feet is the longest one. That's crazy.
So part of the difficulty with that challenge too is it has a lot of pothole escapes in it, so it's very dependent on water levels. Each of the 3 canyons are dependent on water levels.
Jeez.
And one of the canyons is actually fed by a dam that they'll occasionally release the dam. So you have to be checking on when the release dates are for that to make sure the canyon doesn't flood. And then if the water's too low, the canyon's quite a bit harder. If it's completely full, it's going to be quite a bit easier to get through the canyon.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting too, because a lot of people think that, like, when people think of like their fears when it comes to canyoneering, it's usually involving getting stuck or heights. But realistically, like, flash floods will pose far more of a threat to anybody's life.
Majority of the deaths in canyoning has been from flash floods.
Yeah. Which people just don't think about, which is unfortunate.
It's been in easy canyons so the very first canyon that I ever did was called Keyhole. And I believe that canyon has the highest death count because people don't check the weather, or there was a group of 12 that got caught in a flash flood in that canyon. And before they went into that canyon, the park ranger was telling them, like, don't go canyoning today. Flash flood risk is way too high. And they didn't listen.
Jeez.
So a lot of things, weather is the most dangerous part of canyoneering.
Yeah, for sure. And and it's also a lot different than climbing too, because I think when, at least when I've been climbing outdoor and it starts raining, you get off the wall.
Yeah.
But when you're in a canyon, you have to find an exit, and sometimes you have to go down canyon for however long. Could be a mile, could just be around the corner. But then you have to find an exit. You have to, especially when you're guiding, you have to get people out. We've had a few run-ins with weather, nothing crazy, but when it starts raining, as guides, our first responsibility is to find an exit.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just weird the way that people don't think about that. And they also, even when you tell them, they don't realize it. And some kids are like, "Why are we getting out?" Like, shit, Cody. But yeah, the trifecta. So what would how would you plan for something like that? Because obviously, there's a lot of dependence, because you have to hit all the canyons at the right time. It's based off weather. It's based off, like you said, the dam. It's getting into the park,
Permits.
permits for all 3 canyons, and then also doing it under 24 hours, which is, I don't know how you would do that in your day, if you would do it at sunset, or if you would wake up while it's still dark and wholly drop in at sunset or sunrise, or sunset. But how would you go about that?
So far, the plan that I have had, and these are just ideas I'm still throwing around, is one, as far as safety goes, I think it'd be a good idea to have pacers, almost like marathon runners. They have someone that partway through a big run, not necessarily a marathon, but some sort of ultra run or something.
Yeah.
They have someone that will join them on the run who's fresh and will help them keep up the pace, basically. So almost picking people that will only do one of the canyons with me, mostly to make sure that, I'm exhausted, I'm not going to make a stupid mistake and kill myself, because I think that's going to be the hardest part, is the exhaustion.
Yeah, especially you're doing over 100 rappels that day.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of swimming and So carrying a lot of weight on your back too. So having people that are fresh help carry that weight. There's part of me, it's I want to earn it. I want to do it all myself. But at first I need to go through the canyons myself and see, okay, here's what the challenge is. Here's what all it entails. Because right now it's more of just it feels like a far off idea because I haven't done the canyons.
Yeah.
But it's a goal for me to work to.
Yeah.
And I think it's good just having goals in life to try and keep you pushing forward, to keep you growing.
Yeah.
So the biggest part of the plan, I think, is finding the people to help support you. Also people to, once you get out of the canyon, get to the car, drive the car to the next canyon and let you start again. There's also, one of the canyons requires you to use the Zion National Park shuttle. So that would probably influence the timing of when we start that one.
Yeah.
So that one's the one that we'd want to do second. So that also, it's not like we can just start it whenever we know the shuttle is going to be running. We got to try and time to get to the shuttle at the right time. So I think starting in the dark would be maybe right at sunset would be the easiest. That way when you're most tired, it'll probably be daylight out.
Yeah.
And when you're most exhausted, you'll have something giving you energy.
So you would start at night, at sunset.
So I'm not 100% sure because I had to look and figure out when the shuttles are working. But in my mind, just thinking it through, I'm starting a little bit before sunset. Maybe it's, I did the approach before sunset, and I tried to time it where I get to the canyon by sunset.
Yeah.
And then doing the canyon
Just to make navigating
in the dark. Sure. Yeah. So actually the group that has a record right now, or last I checked, that had a record, they, on the last canyon, they got lost.
Jeez.
And it took them quite a while to figure out where to go. And so they might have been able to do it in under 24 hours if they didn't get lost. I think they were pretty close. So.
And is Heaps the longest one?
Heaps is the longest one.
Yeah.
Has the most rappels. Imlay is also has quite a few rappels and tricky pothole escapes as well. And then Kolob, I don't know personally anyone who has done Kolob. People have done it. It's out there.
Yeah.
I haven't talked with anyone, but from what I hear, just reading online, it's supposed to be the easiest of the three. So I'd probably save that one to last. Try and knock out the hardest one first.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
you interested in joining?
I am.
You are?
interested in
Yeah.
joining.
It's gonna be a lot of cardio.
It is. That's like a lot of cardio. 24 hours straight too.
Yeah.
It's basically triathlon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially you're hiking for miles with a heavy pack, then you're rappelling, you're doing pothole escapes, you're doing like canyoneering technical, and then you're also swimming.
Mm-hmm.
So
Almost like triathlon. You said it.
what is something that you would like compare this to? Like, this is the blank of blank, kind of like,
Yeah, so in climbing, there's the Yosemite Trifecta, which is the 3 biggest walls in Yosemite in a day. This would be, in my opinion, the canyoneering version of that.
Yeah.
So it's, for the climbers, they're climbing El Cap, so they're climbing Half Dome, and, I forget the last, but the third biggest.
It's the Yosemite Trifecta.
Mm-hmm. But for them, it's over 6,000 feet of climbing in under 24 hours. So in my opinion, this is the equivalent to that. The fact that it hasn't been done yet, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Canyoneering is still a new sport where I feel like there's a lot of low-hanging fruit if you want to try and set a record of some sort. And I think that would be cool to try and almost the competitive side. I'm a very competitive person.
Yeah.
So part of me wants to take some canyoneering things and be like, hey, like, here's my best time on it. Like, happily put them out there and be like, someone try and beat me, because I feel like that's how we grow.
Yeah, that's how
is if I have someone to compete with. So
yeah, and I think it's interesting too. Like, I think climbing also has the same aspect. Like, a lot of people do take it very casually, and like they don't care so much about getting better. It's more like a relaxing thing that they do on their weekend.
yeah,
They'll go to the climbing gym or they'll go outdoors. And I think the same thing for canyoneering. I think the people outside of our guiding community don't take canyoneering crazy seriously. Like, it's very recreational. And I found the third. It's Mount Watkins.
Yeah.
And El Cap and Half Dome.
Yep.
And Yosemite's Triple Crown.
Triple Crown, not Trifecta.
Yeah. Yeah, Trifecta is cool too. I think
it sounds
the canyoneering Trifecta would be better.
Yeah.
It was probably called
Alex Honnold. Yeah.
They did it in 19 hours.
Yeah. So I think the canyoneering Trifecta will be harder to get within the time limit. I don't know. I haven't climbed any of those walls or done any of these canyons. It's just the fact that the best team that's done it has done it in around 25 hours.
And how would I find those guys
I think if you search Zion Trifecta canyoneering, it should pop up, and they wrote like a blog post about their experience doing that. Could be wrong on that.
How did you hear about these guys?
I heard about them so long ago. I don't remember, honestly. Are you finding it?
I think so. It's called the Zion Trifecta. It's in a book called Canyon Tales.
Yeah.
And it's for 2009.
Yep.
Trifecta training.
Does it have I think at the very bottom it has their time. If I remember correct. It's been like over a year since I read it.
Here we go. Jared Campbell, Ryan McDermott, and Buzz Burrell on June 27th and the 28th of 2009. They started Emley at midnight.
So they started on Imlay.
So, and then they did a hour-long approach. Maybe. There's something after it that says 3 a.m. So Lava Point Trailhead, 3 a.m. And then I don't know if this is a timestamp, like how long it took them, or if it's a the actual time. It looks like the actual time of day. So they arrive at the first rappel at 1 o'clock.
It looks like timestamp.
Yeah.
Because if they start at 3 a.m., it wouldn't arrive at the first stop at 1 o'clock.
I don't know what the 3 a.m. thing is. But yeah, then 5:30, last wrap in the Virgin River. And then they get out of Emily at 6:30. Then they drive a car to Heaps. They start the approach to Heaps at 7 o'clock, and they get out at 2:30, which is crazy fast. That's like 8 to 9 hours. So
Yeah, for a 14-hour canyon.
Yeah.
14-plus hour canyon.
No, yeah, 7.5. And then they drive up the trail. They leave cart, then they get in Kolob, and they finish. So Kolob took them longer. Kolob took them almost 9 hours.
I think it's because they got lost, though.
Yeah.
So there's an article in there somewhere about that.
Game utterly lost.
Utterly lost.
Lose over 2 hours. Yeah, so they got out of their cart 25 hours.
Kolob is supposed to be the trickiest as far as navigation goes.
Really? So why is that?
It's just not as well marked of a trailhead. It's kind of the least popular of the three. So Heaps and Imlay are more like, oh, this is like the crowning jewel, like the standard of what I'm trying to do. And then Kolob's, it's like, oh, here's the third big canyon. That is kind of just I don't want to say add-on, but at least in my opinion, that's what.
Sure. It just is a bit of a subsequent kind of.
With it being less popular of a canyon.
Yeah.
It's not as well traveled.
I think any canyon compared to Emily and Heaps is going to kind of fall in their shadow anyway. But yeah, Zion Trifecta, 25 hours, 3 minutes. Emily Heaps go up. And there's the Zion double too.
Which is Imlay and Heaps?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to do it, go all the way.
That's true.
Trifecta. Who cares about the double?
Dang. So you would do all those in 24 hours.
It's the hope.
Yeah. Do you think that these guys did Kolob before? I would assume they did. All right.
Yeah, so earlier in that article, it talks about them doing all the canyons separately, like on a previous trip, to just kind of make sure that they had a plan for everything.
Sure.
There's training involved. Like I've been working on building up my cardio, trying to get in better endurance, and building up for preparation for that. I think later this year, once work slows down a little bit, I'm going to try going out to Utah and just knocking out a bunch of canyons, just getting in.
Just reps.
Not necessarily reps, but a high quantity of canyons in as little amount of time as possible. Just to push myself and see.
And then post the records.
I mean, I'm not necessarily going to be like, oh, I'm going to try and like set a record on skiing, because there's no info out there on these are what 10 records are. At least I wasn't able to find any info. But I'm hoping to try and start up just like a Facebook page and just say like, hey, like this is me just posting what my time was. I was trying to move faster to this canyon. And then just start like different canyons will have different ones. And people can start trying to trim down time and see how quickly they can do a canyon.
And it adds a competitive aspect that brings a lot more people to, especially competitive people, to the sport.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like I think
makes it more of a sport.
Yeah.
So.
And I think competitive people, once they start pushing the boundaries of what canyoneering is and when canyoneering can develop is something bigger than it already is.
Yeah.
It's always crazy that this article is from
2009,
which canyoneering is already a very young sport. It's fairly unknown. But the fact that these guys are doing what they did in 2009 with probably using climbing gear.
Yeah.
So
they might have had static ropes.
Yeah. Talk to you about the difference, like for people who don't know what the difference between static rope and
Yeah, so in climbing, we want to make sure that we use a dynamic rope. So whenever we in climbing, you fall a lot, right? So the biggest fall I've taken is 30 feet, which is not anything huge for a sport climber. There's videos online of like professional climbers taking 100-foot falls, and the rope catches them. They're safe because that rope stretches and absorbs all the shock.
Yeah.
If the rope didn't stretch, you'd break your back.
Yeah.
It'd be like falling on a steel cable. So we want to use those ropes for climbing, just for safety issues. And then a static rope is one that doesn't stretch. So a lot of times in climbing, those are still used, but they're used for if you're doing massive climbing, you need to haul your gear up behind you. Static ropes are great for that.
Yeah.
And then in canyoneering, there's static ropes, but they're made specifically for canyoneering. So canyoneering is like taking your gear and rubbing it with sandpaper. You're sliding this gear down to 2 sandpaper walls. Yeah. Especially in Utah, where everything's sandstone out there. It's just very abrasive on all your gear. Yeah. So for canyoneering ropes, we use it's very burly, not necessarily burly. A lot of them are pretty thin, but they're just durable ropes that will last us for a while. And they're static because you shouldn't take a fall on a canyoneering rope. You should never put yourself in a situation where you can take a fall like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty what you're saying about gear getting acid destroyed. And the climbers pretty like to baby their gear. And
yeah,
but
our gear it's scratched up and stuff. Yeah. But that's part of my job is just making sure that it's still safe for what we do, because we do definitely abuse our gear to an extent.
Yeah, and like the environment is unyielding on our ropes, on the harnesses, especially in slot canyons. Super tight. You have both sides of the earth on the side of you, and you're just squeezing through there with your harness on, with carabiners on, and just you see marks of people's carabiners in the wall,
scratching the walls. Yeah, that's when you know it's tight. Yeah.
Which I don't know why. If it's super tight, I pull my harness off.
Yeah, most of the time if I know the canyon's gonna be super tight, I will take my harness off. Yeah. I've been on certain trips where I don't even bring a harness. I just make a webbing harness. Yeah. If it's like, this canyon only has one rappel, and then the rest of it you're just sliding along the canyon, I'll just grab some webbing and take that through. Most of the time if I'm guiding, I don't think that really looks too professional, so I've only done that if I'm not guiding. But
and looking professional is a big part of guiding too, especially because people who don't know a lot about the mechanics of how things work or what we're doing, they're relying a lot on to them how things look. Yeah. And I thought you just serve them well or serve them poorly, but if they see like that their heart is
ragged.
Yeah. Even if it's a well-built harness, it can get a little torn up and still be safe. But when they see that, they think, it's unsafe. And even people who look at the rope, there's no way that'll hold me. Yeah. What it will hold that more than they'll ever weigh. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of weird. But I think we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back.
Sounds good.
Sweet. All right. And we're back. Still here with Matt Hutchins. Hoping we kind of shift gears a bit. Tell us about a particularly memorable canyoneer climbing trip that you went on, and if it had any profound impact on your faith, and what made it so special.
Yeah, so I have been on a couple trips that are just me, like going out by myself. I think those trips have been the most, something about being isolated in the wilderness. Yeah. It's impactful in the way of those have been the times I've drawn the closest to God. Yeah. On trips and stuff. So the downside to that is you're drawing close to God, but you're also not. He's pouring into you. I don't think you should just be being poured into. You should also be pouring into others. Yeah. So that trip has been impactful, but there have also been trips where I feel like I served others well on these trips. I feel like I have poured into others well. Mm-hmm. And I talked about it a little bit, but a recent trip that I went on where the students we just had a really good time around the fire, a lot of good discussions. Those are, in my opinion, a lot of what makes trips like, these are good. The most memorable trips for me, though, are the ones where it's like, that was a rough trip. Things were going wrong all over the place. Whether it be vehicles breaking down or just having issues on the rough dirt roads, or someone getting stuck, like you having to give someone a haircut. Those are the things that it sucks when you're in them. And you're like, oh, this is horrible, but they make the best stories afterwards, and you enjoy them the most.
Yeah.
So it's the smooth trips are the ones that you forget the quickest.
Yeah.
Whereas the trips where it's, I suffered with this person on that. Do you remember when that happened? And like we were suffering together. Those are the ones that you recount for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
So I never want something to go wrong on a trip, but when it does, it makes the trip memorable.
Yeah.
So
I think it even serves as a metaphor, almost like God does use broken people, and just like he can use broken people when things don't go how we want them to go on trips, God still takes advantage of that.
No, definitely the most growth I've seen from myself on trips has been the roughest trips. I think in my life, the most growth I've seen in myself has been when I'm at the roughest points in my life. And it's almost encouraging that whenever you're in one of those rough points in life, you can be like, okay, this is rough. I hate this right now, but God is definitely moving. He's with me even when my life seems like it's falling apart, or when I'm going through what seems like hell on earth.
Sure.
God's with me through the valleys. He's with me in the canyons. I'm having a rough time. Sounds cliche-ish, but yeah.
That's good.
I wouldn't have a trip yet that I'd be like, that'd be horrible to repeat. Like, I don't necessarily want some of the things that have happened on trips that have just been rough. I don't want the van to break down in the middle of nowhere. But those trips were, even when the van was broken down, I have good memories of the people that I was with when that happened. And I wouldn't trade those memories for anything.
Yeah. Wow. Obviously, like in the outdoors and in wilderness, we get to experience the beauty of creation. And how do you use the responsibility of stewardship, conservation, and like environmental just awareness, like lead up trace? How do you see that like aligning ultimately with our faith, but then also just like with our responsibility as guides?
Yeah, with our responsibility as guides, I think it's very important to, one, teach people to treat the outdoors with respect. Like, I don't want to lead a group out there that leaves a bunch of trash in a canyon and then later on be leading another group out there and that trash being there. If I don't want that, I don't want someone else to experience that either. I don't want someone else to come through a canyon that, oh, we had a student mark on the walls because of that. I also think having someone mark something like Jesus loves you on a wall or something, that is not a good representation of Christianity. That's, I am graffitiing this wall. I'm doing something that's wrong, that even though what I'm saying is true. So I think as a Christian company, we should try and show respect to God's creation. We should try and, what's the word that you use in the question of?
Conserve, stewardship.
Stewardship, yeah. We should try and have good stewardship of the gifts that he's given us.
Yeah.
And we want to make, I personally love it when I'm going through a canyon that, even though a lot of times, or I haven't done a canyon yet that hasn't been done. So other people have been in that canyon before me, but it's really cool when you go through a canyon and there's no sign of any other human ever being out there. And it just gives you a way more isolated feel, which is an amazing feeling. So I want to preserve that feeling for others whenever they go through the canyons and be able to give others that same feeling.
Definitely.
And I don't want there to have to be, because a lot of the restrictions that are in place right now with things out there they're in place because people have been bad stewardships.
Yeah.
And they're in place for good reasons. I hate that they're in place sometimes. It's just on like group size. There's certain times that we have to think about like, oh, we can't bring a group this big into this area. And that's because people have not been good stewards of the area. So I understand why it's there. I hate that it's there. And I don't want to be the cause of more restrictions ever being placed. So
How do you describe your interactions with either the BLM or with Rangers?
yeah, I haven't had too many. Most of my interactions with Rangers have actually been climbing. Yeah. But all the interactions have been super good. They are super kind for the most part. I've never had a bad interaction where they weren't kind or anything like that. A lot of times I'm almost scared that they're gonna find something that I'm doing that is not up to code. But a lot of times I'm like overthinking the interaction, and they've been super respectful. Just ask a bunch of questions usually. I think a lot of it is they're wanting to know that you know what you're doing to an extent and aren't gonna hurt yourself. And either they might not know what you're doing. It's other times I've just talked with them with confidence, basically. Yeah. It's been like, all right, you're cool. You're not going to get someone killed doing what you're doing. So they're out to protect the land and to protect you. So
That's good. How would you describe your interactions with other either canyoneers or guiding companies? How does that usually play out?
Oh, that was a little hard. Everyone thinks that their way is the only way, and there's a lot of different ways to canyoneer safely. Yeah. And there's methods that are out there that I haven't seen before that are perfectly safe. Sure. So there's a lot of people that I've heard people like behind my back talking crap about the way that I do something. Yeah. But it's a safe way. It's been tested. They just do it different. So for the most part, all my interactions have been good. I'm not sure what they say about us as a group behind our backs or anything like that, if there's any sort of our way's better. But
yeah,
it's just people being people, kind of.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because a lot of what we do, like we have to deal with far bigger groups than most guiding companies ever imagine dealing with. And we also have a far different approach to how we guide.
Yeah.
Other people do. And so a lot of what we do is tailored to how we guide. And most companies also don't focus on teaching students or people on trips as much as we do, which is interesting. But then the other thing too is, like, are there any, like, what canyon etiquette when interacting with other people in the canyons, and like whether it's a bigger or smaller group, like who goes first, like what is it that you want people to know when interacting with other canyoneers in a canyon?
Yeah, really quickly going back a little, because the question just reminded me of interactions with people. I think a lot of times they see how big of a group we have, and we're pretty efficient in canyons.
Sure.
I might be bragging, but I feel like we move.
Oh yeah.
Especially for the size of groups that we take. So a lot of times people see our group and they're like, oh my gosh, why are these people out here doing this? Like, especially in this big of a group. And at first they might be just frustrated with that. And I've had a lot of times where it's like they're feeling like they're gonna be stuck behind us forever, and then we never see them again because we are moving efficiently. And that's with the big difference is we're not really a guiding company. We're as you said, an instructional institute. So we're teaching the students to do this themselves. Mm-hmm. That's a big spot where we differentiate from most companies. So since the students are like, they're not professionals or anything like that, but a lot of them know a decent amount of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Especially our higher up classes or more advanced classes. The trip that I was on recently is a good portion of the trip is I'm there just to make sure you don't make a mistake, but they're doing most of the work. So since they know their stuff to an extent, they move efficiently. Yeah. More efficient than most groups of that size would move.
Yeah. I think that's usually our goal on trips is to push the students not only when we're leading them, but have them lead themselves. Mm-hmm. Usually at the end of the trip, we'll do a day, we'll pick a few students who have leadership capabilities to all say, wow, you lead the canyon today. Obviously, ask us and we'll be there. We'll be doing the canyon with you. But you're going to be setting up the rappels. You're going to be building anchors. You're going to be manning it. We're going to be manning it with you. But we do try to create a learning environment, which a lot of other guiding companies don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that speaks a lot to how we are focused on growing people, whether that's in their faith or in their ability. So, yeah.
But as far as you're asking, is it canyon courtesy or canyon etiquette? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think right off the bat, kind of your thought process, if you run into like another group, should be the smaller group goes first, and that group will pass you. But I have had a group of 14 people, or I'm estimating there, stuck behind a group of 2.
Yeah.
And we kept running into that same group of 2. This might just be me. If I was that group of 2 and there was a group of 14 that was right, like waiting on me at every single rappel, like quite a bit of time, I'm like, okay, this group knows what they're doing. They're moving fast. We should let them pass.
Yeah.
I think that would be good etiquette. I have had smaller groups say like, oh, we're really fast. Like, can we pass you? And I let them pass, and then I'm waiting on them. So I think you should, for the most part, if you come up on a group that's in front of you, definitely you should try and wait for them to invite you to pass. Hopefully they do. If you're sitting there waiting forever to rappel, I think it's a good idea to ask them if you can. Kindly ask them if you can pass them, then yeah. But for the most part, if it's the smaller groups than us, I'm like, yep, like you should pass us. You'll move faster. It'll save you time. We're only going to be holding you back. And yeah, you might put us a couple minutes behind time, but yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, is there anything else that you want to say?
Well, I'm the introvert. I've already talked too much.
It's true. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on.
And thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Honored to be your first guest on the show.
The guinea pig.
The guinea pig, yeah.
But yeah, if you are interested in learning about Venture Off as an organization or interested in supporting Venture Off, we are a nonprofit, and you can check us out at ventureoff.org. Other than that, thanks for listening, and have a great rest of your day.
Hitting that stuff till you hearing that sound.